The story kicks off with Dae Sung and his friend walking together the day before their high school graduation ceremony. Everything seems normal until out of nowhere, something bizarre starts happening to Dae Sung. He feels an overwhelming force pulling him away, and no one can stop it. When he finally regains consciousness, he realizes he's in hell. Completely shocked, Dae Sung struggles to accept the grim reality. His surroundings are terrifying, with massive monsters battling each other, killing without mercy. He hides, questioning how and why he ended up in such a place. After wandering for 10 days, hunger strikes hard. Hell has no day or night, no sunlight, and food is nearly impossible to come by. The only thing he can eat is the flesh of the monsters that roam around. Desperate and starving, Dae Sung bends over a rotting monster corpse, forcing himself to eat a small piece of its flesh. As he tries to stomach the meal, another monster suddenly appears behind him. In pure terror, Dae Sung narrowly escapes its attack. With nothing else to defend himself, he resorts to throwing stones at the creature. After a tense struggle, he manages to drive it away, still unharmed. Overwhelmed by stress, he breaks down in tears, crying out loud about how much he misses his mother. On the 39th day of Dae Sung's stay in hell, he noted with horror that in order to survive, he had to abandon his humanity. By the 51st day, Dae Sung had grown somewhat accustomed to hell, accepting the grim reality that he needed to eat the remains of dead monsters to stay alive. Suddenly, a screen appeared in front of him, notifying him that his level had been raised to 3. At first, he thought he had lost his mind, but after some reflection, he accepted the notification. After 7 years in hell, Dae Sung reached level 24, granting him significant survival abilities. By his 24th year, he was easily defeating most monsters. By his 51st year, Dae Sung had become strong enough to kill even powerful incarnations with little effort. By the 79th year, he was powerful enough to face the most formidable opponents. At this point, Dae Sung had an assistant who informed him that it was time for an audience with the Demon King, the one who had dragged him into hell 80 years ago. Eager for answers, Dae Sung quickly dispatched the smaller demons guarding the castle. However, the Demon Lord's gatekeeper soon appeared, furious and threatening to kill him for insulting the Demon Lord. Unfazed by the threats, Dae Sung engaged the gatekeeper in a fierce duel. The gatekeeper was incredibly powerful, but Dae Sung refused to back down and continued his relentless attacks. His assistant noted that the gatekeeper was a difficult opponent and needed to be taken down swiftly. Enraged by Dae Sung's persistence, the gatekeeper prepared a powerful attack, but Dae Sung struck first, tearing through the gatekeeper's chest with his sword and emerging from the battle calm and unscathed. After the fight, Dae Sung's assistant warned him that the Demon Lord would surely be furious over the gatekeeper's death. Dae Sung confirmed this, but when asked if he wanted to become the ruler of hell after defeating the Demon Lord, he brushed it off, saying he had no interest. The assistant, curious, asked why Dae Sung was fighting the Demon Lord. Dae Sung explained that 80 years had passed since he was brought to hell, and during that time, he had fought monsters just to survive. His assistant agreed, but Dae Sung continued, stating that everyone had their reasons for being in hell, and he still had questions about why he was sent there. With a smile, Dae Sung told his assistant that he intended to ask the Demon Lord himself. The assistant suggested a polite conversation might be better, but Dae Sung, undeterred, declared, "The price for my suffering must be paid." With his weapon in hand, he confidently marched toward the Demon Lord. After battling through the Demon Lord's army, Dae Sung finally faced the Demon Lord himself in a brutal fight. In the end, he defeated the bloodthirsty ruler. His assistant, bewildered, couldn't believe what he'd witnessed, calling Dae Sung a monstrous bastard for killing the god of demons. At that moment, a screen appeared again with a notification. "Would you like to return to Earth? His assistant, the burning skull, asked, "What is your call?" "You are now the absolute ruler of hell, having killed the previous one." After giving it some thought, Dae Sung decided to return to Earth, the one wish he had held on to for 80 long years. Dae Sung's senses return in a blaze of harsh fluorescent light, and he finds himself lying in a hospital bed, paralyzed with confusion. A doctor leans over, checking his eye reflexes, and offers his mother a comforting smile, assuring her that with rehabilitation, her son will regain his strength. She's flooded with relief, tears pooling in her eyes, believing that this is nothing short of a miracle. But for Dae Sung, the reality feels like a curse. Suddenly he screams, the sound tearing through the room like a wounded beast, the agony so intense that he thrashes uncontrollably, ripping his IV from his arm. His pain-filled cries are guttural, primal, and the doctor tries to calm him, repeating, "Mr. Han Dae Sung, please calm down." But Dae Sung is beyond hearing, overcome with the crushing shock of returning to a weakened life after surviving the ruthless world of hell. He feels betrayed by his own body, the years of fighting and suffering seeming meaningless as he's forced back into this frail shell. In the corner of the room, a mother covers her children's, pulling them closer. "Mom, did he turn into a monster?" one whispers, wide-eyed. "If he's a monster, we should tell someone," the second child says, clinging to her. Dae Sung's wild confusion only intensifies as he glares at the approaching doctor. Fueled by anger and disbelief, he bites down on the doctor's hand, drawing blood, snarling with the strength of a man torn between worlds. "What did you do to me? Have you cursed me? Poisoned me? What's happened to my body?" he demands, his voice full of fury and fear. None of it makes sense. 80 long years of fighting, surviving the unforgiving fires of hell, only to wake up in this helpless state. He tumbles out of bed, his weakened body collapsing to the floor with a thud. 2 staff members rush over, gripping his arms and hoisting him back up while he curses at them, clawing against their hold. Then, in the midst of his struggle, he catches a glimpse out of the hospital window, a massive wormhole swirling ominously in the sky. His heart stops. How could this be? His world has shifted once again, the sight reigniting questions he'd thought he left behind. Could hell have been real? Or was it still chasing him, blurring the line between nightmare and reality? The hospital room spirals into chaos as the staff members wrestle Dae Sung back onto the bed, their grips firm and unrelenting as he thrashes against them. His limbs, weakened but filled with frantic energy, fight to break free. A nurse rushes forward, deftly preparing a syringe with an anesthetic, and with one quick motion injects it into his neck. The effect is almost immediate. His vision blurs, the bright lights dimming as his strength wanes. His heart pounds, racing with questions and frustrations that still rage within him. But as the sedative spreads, his mind becomes sluggish, and he struggles to keep his eyes open, every blink heavier than the last. In the fading clarity, one desperate thought claws its way to the surface. Was it all real? As Dae Sung's senses return, he finds himself gazing at a news channel on the hospital TV, where the broadcast confirms his suspicions. The wormhole he had seen wasn't a hallucination. It was indeed a gate, and a hunting team had been dispatched to deal with the monsters within. He watches, almost hypnotized, as the report shifts to the leader of the hunting team, sending updates to a man who's just arrived to meet him. Moments later, a familiar figure enters his room. It's his old friend, Chanho. Relief and confusion flood Dae Sung as he recognizes him, realizing in disbelief that Chanho is standing before him, alive and well. Chanho's eyes are bright, shocked, but overjoyed to see him awake. When Dae Sung, still dazed, asks who he is, the recognition flickers into place. His friend explains the unthinkable. It's been 10 years since Dae Sung suddenly collapsed on his way home, slipping into an unexplained coma. The revelation leaves Dae Sung reeling. He had believed he'd lost 30 years. But still, He can't shake the haunting memory of 80 years spent in hell. Chanho goes on to share that Dae Sung's mother has endured great hardship, working 3 jobs to keep him in the hospital. Then, with a hopeful smile, he encourages Dae Sung to start anew, mentioning that he's already arranged a job opportunity to help him rebuild his life. As Dae Sung is wheeled outside for fresh air by his mother, he can't help but feel a mix of guilt and resentment, a hatred for his frail, immobilized body that now depends on others to simply move. But before he can dwell on this bitterness, 2 men approach, demanding repayment of a debt his mother owes. She apologizes, pleading tearfully for just 1 more month, but the men are relentless. One of them sneers and shoves her forcefully, his threats growing more vicious as her voice trembles with desperation, begging him not to shame her in front of her son. Witnessing his mother's humiliation unleashes a seething rage within Dae Sung. He starts to hurl insults, calling the men vermin and scum. Enraged, one of the men grabs his sleeve, but his mother intervenes, pleading for her son's safety and reminding the thugs he's just a child. But Dae Sung won't yield. His face hardens in defiance, unwilling to back down. With a sadistic grin, the thug throws him roughly to the ground before unleashing a brutal beating on him. After throwing him to the ground, the thug delivered brutal, relentless kicks to Dae Sung, each one more merciless than the last, as his mother pleaded desperately for him to stop. Her voice trembled, begging them to leave her son alone, but her words fell on deaf ears. The thug ignored her pleas entirely, his kicks landing without pause, each strike echoing her helplessness and Dae Sung's mounting fury. As Dae Sung lies there, consumed by helplessness and yearning for his old strength, a flicker of familiarity appears before him. A sudden quest notification, floating in a status window that had been his lifeline in hell. His mind races, a glimmer of hope sparking amidst the chaos. Without a second thought, he accepts the quest, knowing it may be his only chance to reclaim control. In that moment, the bloodied earth beneath him and his bruised pride feel like stepping stones, a reminder of his relentless will to survive. Suddenly, everything around him halts, as if time itself has come to a standstill. His surroundings freeze, and Dae Sung's gaze is drawn to his status window, where the details of a new quest unfold. The quest conditions are clear. He must reach a specific point within an hour. The reward, should he succeed, is an elixir of recovery, a promise of restored strength, a glimmer of hope to reclaim the power he once wielded. Fueled by determination, Dae Sung contemplates whether his former strength could truly return. Spotting a red marker just 10 meters away, he attempts to stand, but when his legs fail him, a grin spreads across his face. With grit in his eyes, he begins crawling toward the target, feeling disgusted at the thought of complaining about something so minor. After all, he is the one who conquered hell itself. Each inch forward feels agonizingly slow. The centimeters stretch into meters, and each meter feels like an endless, punishing mile. Yet he refuses to relent, driven by the promise of reclaiming his power. At this pace, Dae Sung begins to doubt he'll reach the destination in time, yet he forces himself to stay composed. He knows, from hard-won experience, that the system never assigns tasks that are truly impossible. As seconds slip by, a thought sparks in his mind, a loophole. Recalling the quest's exact terms, he realizes he only needs to reach the destination, not crawl there himself. Annoyed at having missed such an obvious solution, he reaches for his wheelchair, moving slowly but with growing determination. Settling into it, he glances at the timer. Just 35 seconds remain. But he refuses to let doubt creep in. Tightening his grip on the wheelchair, he propels himself forward, each push bringing him closer. With sheer willpower, he manages to cross the final distance in the last second. As the quest completes, he immediately consumes the elixir he's been rewarded with. A wave of relief sweeps over him. The intense pain fades, and though his recovery is slight, he can feel a fraction of his former strength returning. With the quest finished, the frozen moment dissolves back into reality, and he sits, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within him once again. As the thugs search frantically, unable to find Dae Sung, who has vanished from sight, the sound of sirens fills the air. Realizing the police have arrived and likely witnessed their assault, they flee before they can face any consequences. Later that night, Dae Sung, lying in his hospital bed, repeatedly tries summoning the status window, desperately hoping to access more quests. But no matter what command he uses, quest, mission, or any combination he can think of, the screen remains inactive. With frustration simmering, he begins to feel the urgency of gaining strength to defend himself when the thugs inevitably return. Just as he starts to feel hopeless, a strange, low hum fills the room and everything shifts. He suddenly finds himself in a boundless, ethereal realm known as the Pantheon. At first, he dismisses this place as a figment of his imagination, but the vividness and weight of the experience soon make it clear. This is no ordinary dream. Summoned for an unknown purpose, he seizes the opportunity and demands another quest, along with a test of his skills. In response, a formidable training creature materializes before him. Without hesitation, Dae Sung follows the quest's instructions, using every ounce of strength he has. His efforts earn him a reward, a memory chip. Though before he can examine it, another quest immediately appears. Each task grows slightly in difficulty, urging him to push his limits. For 10 days, he grinds through the relentless quests, running, fighting, and pushing himself well past his limits. Yet, despite his relentless effort, he only manages to complete 55% of the overall training program. Frustration builds as he tires of these minor challenges, and he finally confronts the Pantheon, demanding a real challenge worthy of his true potential. In response to his demand for a worthy challenge, the system grants Dae Sung a new quest to defeat a crying demon. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning crashes down before him, and there stands the demon, a monstrous entity cloaked in thunder, its anguished wails reverberating through the air. Dae Sung, the once feared demon lord, instantly recognizes this foe, recalling how he'd barely escaped death in their last encounter. His heart pounds with a mix of dread and exhilaration as he readies himself for a rematch. The demon lunges, the dit's claws slashing with lightning speed. Dae Sung dodges just in time, fully aware that one hit could obliterate him. He seizes a moment to counterattack, leaping forward, but his efforts are met with a brutal swipe, sending him sprawling across the ground. Blood trickles from his mouth as he shakily rises, his pride wounded. The relentless demon presses its advantage, pushing him into a desperate dance of dodging. Just as Dae Sung feels his strength wavering, the creature grabs hold, its claws squeezing the life out of him. But in that critical moment, a memory jolts him. He had defeated this demon once before, by summoning his sword. Without hesitation, he calls forth his weapon, its blade gleaming with deadly intent. With one swift, precise slash, he severs the demon's left claw. The creature reels in agony, but Dae Sung does not falter. He follows up with a merciless blow, sending the demon back to the depths from which it came, as though it were nothing more than an insect before his wrath. With the quest completed, Dae Sung finds himself back in his hospital room, greeted by the soft morning light. As he opens the window, the gentle creak stirs his mother awake. She gazes in sleepy confusion at the figure beside her, only to be shocked when she sees Dae Sung, now possessing a physique reminiscent of a seasoned warrior, his muscles built and defined. The hospital staff, assigned to his rehabilitation, are left utterly speechless. According to their projections, his recovery should have taken at least 6 months, not this staggering transformation in only 15 days. Still concerned, his mother expresses her unease, but the doctor reassures her, marveling at Dae Sung's remarkable resilience. Dae Sung stretches, feeling the results of his latest quest and noting the gradual return of his strength. Observing his mother talking with a nurse, tears glistening in her eyes as she thanks her for the support, Dae Sung feels a surge of emotion. He realizes just how difficult these 10 years must have been for her. His heart tightens, and he silently vows to shield her from further hardship now that he has returned. Amon lunges. Driven by a new determination, Dae Sung heads to the washroom, whispers, "Pantheon!" and in an instant, his soul is pulled back to the mysterious realm. He asks the system if it can accelerate his progress, and it responds affirmatively, offering him the choice to select a difficulty level for future quests. Recalling his status as the Demon Lord, he sets it to Hell, the ultimate tier. At his decision, a dark orb materializes before him and then shatters, revealing a sight that leaves him wide-eyed in astonishment. Standing before him is none other than a mirror image of himself, the absolute ruler of Hell, in his fullest, most terrifying strength. Dae Sung summons his sword, a thrill sparking through him at the prospect of facing his formidable mirror image. Wasting no time, his replica lunges forward with a powerful overhead strike. The weakened Dae Sung barely blocks, feeling the strain with each clash. His doppelganger is relentless, pressing from every angle, seeking a single flaw in his defenses. He quickly realizes that the longer this fight stretches on, the more it tips in his replica's favor. In a sudden move, the doppelganger finds an opening, striking Dae Sung with such force that he's sent flying across the arena. Gasping, he acknowledges that his opponent feels all too real, a perfect, daunting copy of his original power. But with a smirk, he decides it's time to even the odds. He activates his blood neutralization skill, rendering him immune to his replica's attacks. Even as the blade grazes him, he feels nothing and quickly turns the tables, slamming his opponent's face into the ground. However, his advantage is fleeting. The replica, true to form, activates the same skill, proving it won't be defeated easily. The battle resumes, the intensity higher than before. In the next exchange, Dae Sung suddenly feels the searing pain of his replica's sword piercing him, a stark reminder of the peril he's facing. Back in the Pantheon, Dae Sung feels cornered, the weight of potential defeat pressing down on him. Realizing that a loss now would undo all his hard work, desperation fuels his thoughts. Searching for any edge, he quickly pulls up his inventory and finds a nutritional tonic, one of the rewards from completed quests. The tonic restores 20% of his stamina, and with 5 bottles, he'd be back at full strength. A flicker of hope ignites. In the heat of battle, Dae Sung takes the risk, downing 1 bottle. The tonic's rejuvenating effects surge through him. Without hesitation, he throws a powerful punch, sending his doppelganger flying. Confidence surging, he chugs 2 more bottles, though his double nearly lands a brutal roundhouse kick. Swiftly evading, Dae Sung finishes a 4th tonic, but his double remains relentless, trapping him in a chokehold with a twisted grin as it drives a blade toward him. In a final daring move, Dae Sung executes a brilliant plan. With his doppelganger's guard down, he pierces its shredded abs with his own blade, causing his double to drop its weapon, which Dae Sung swiftly adds to his inventory. With a smirk, he watches his double collapse to its knees, savoring his last-second victory. His gamble had paid off. After completing the Hell difficulty quest, a blazing blue window appears, declaring that Dae Sung has reached a 100% implementation rate. His body is restored to its peak condition, each muscle and fiber returned to its prime. As an unexpected bonus, he gains the extraordinary ability to use the Hell system on Earth. This new power promises a significant edge, and the realization of it fills him with a mix of relief and excitement, knowing that his true strength is now at his command in both realms. Suddenly, his hospital clothes shred apart, revealing his battle-scarred body. Each scar sparks a wave of memories, the pain and triumphs flashing through his mind and filling him with a profound sense of déjà vu. Undeterred, he commands the system to return him to Earth, but a new panel appears, prompting him to check unread messages. Curiosity piqued, he selects yes, and the messages roll in, congratulating him on ascending as a monarch. They explain that after he, the monarch, departed, the heavenly beings seized control of hell, imprisoning the demons within. The revelation amuses him, yet it also brings a surge of dark satisfaction. With a defiant grin, Dae Sung scoffs at the hell that stole 80 years of his life, now begging for his aid. He flips off his former domain, uttering a parting curse filled with spite. He commands the system to exit, vanishing from the pantheon and leaving the hordes of monsters frozen in shock, their fates now sealed in the hell they once ruled. Back in the hospital, Dae Sung nonchalantly performs one-handed vertical push-ups, his mother and the doctor watching in stunned silence. Using his keen deduction skills, the doctor concludes that Dae Sung has somehow awakened, though his mother still struggles to accept her son's unbelievable transformation. Despite the doctor's reassurances, she somberly expresses a desire to understand what might have caused such a drastic change. Eventually, the doctor suggests she consult the Awakener Association, and Dae Sung overhears. Soon after, the scene shifts, and we find him and his mother in a taxi. As they drive, he reflects on her conversation with the doctor, curious about any secrets she might be keeping. His thoughts grow more tangled as he looks out the window, wondering what might have happened on Earth while he was in a coma. When they finally arrive home, his mom mentions she'll be back soon and heads out. Entering the house, he's surprised to see a girl with cotton candy pink hair rummaging through a drawer, pulling out cash. He racks his memory, struggling to recognize this mysterious girl. Just then, his mother returns, breaking the awkward silence and introducing the girl as Han Jisoo, his sister. The realization dawns on Dae Sung that the girl he couldn't recognize this whole time is his own sister. Noticing her daughter pocketing cash again, their mom is visibly annoyed, but Jisoo just rolls her eyes and heads for the door. Still processing the shock of not recognizing his only sibling, Dae Sung watches as she brushes past him, bitterness in her voice as she reminds him of how hard the last 10 years have been for their mother and her. Looking down, Dae Sung feels a pang of regret, wishing he could have been there to help. Just as Jisoo steps out, their mom asks her to at least say where she's going, but a loud, threatening voice interrupts. The debt collectors have returned, banging on the door and counting down, threatening to break in if it isn't opened. Everyone goes quiet, but Dae Sung is furious, his jaw clenching as he gets ready to deliver some long-overdue payback. Growing impatient outside, the man in the silver suit kicks the door, and Dae Sung's mother pleads with Jisoo to come back inside. Jisoo, however, stands fearless, arms crossed. The silver suit glances at his thug partner, deciding they should just force their way in. But then, Jisoo steps out with a glare, annoyed by their noise. Momentarily taken aback, the silver suit guy assumes she must be the daughter and rushes inside furiously, while his lecherous partner sneers at Jisoo. Inside, Dae Sung's trembling mother apologizes, pulling out some cash. But a second later, the silver suit scoffs, swatting the money away and viciously slapping her to the ground. Watching his mother hurt ignites a deep rage in Dae Sung, and he throws a single punch that sends the silver suit flying. Shocked, the fat thug stares as the arrogant silver suit guy whimpers about being bullied. Grateful for this chance to handle things personally, Dae Sung turns on the thug, grabbing his jaw and laying down punch after punch, 100 times over, until the thug is sprawled on the floor, bloodied. Desperate, the thug grabs a wooden chair, swinging it with all his might, but Dae Sung punches right through it, sending the thug crashing into the wall. Frantically, the silver suit pulls a dagger, mocking Dae Sung. Unfazed, Dae Sung grabs his wrist and twists it with brutal force, avenging his mother. As the silver suit cries in pain, his hand limp, the fat thug warns Dae Sung he won't get away unscathed. Coldly, Dae Sung proposes a simple solution: leave no witnesses. But just as he's about to finish off the thug, he freezes at his mother's scream. She begs him to stop, her voice trembling. The two battered debt collectors scramble out of the house in tears, collapsing into their car. Driving off in disbelief, the silver suit anxiously asks his partner what they should do. Reeling from the realization that a kid who'd been comatose for 10 years could become so terrifyingly strong. Licking his wounds, the big thug tries to change the subject, but his attention shifts as he catches sight of Dae Sung's sister, Jisoo. Eyes lighting up with a twisted grin, he shouts to his partner, "Hey, isn't that the sister?" His gaze lingers a little too long, sizing her up. Sitting quietly in the yard, his mother began to recount everything that had happened while he was in a coma. She explained how, in the beginning, she'd rushed him from hospital to hospital, desperate to find out what was wrong but coming up with nothing. She eventually sold their house and gave up the shop, hoping he would recover quickly. But reality was far crueler, and their savings soon dwindled. Following a friend's advice, she took out a loan from a finance company, which turned out to be far more demanding than she'd anticipated. The debt kept snowballing, with interest piling up faster than she could repay. Listening intently, he then asked about his younger sister and her school situation, noticing how worn down she seemed. His mother's face grew somber as she explained that his sister had dropped out 2 years ago. Since then, she'd been taking up multiple jobs, working at a gas station during the day and a store at night. Their mother had even suffered an injury while working at a diner, which only pushed his sister to take on more shifts to make ends meet. Heartbroken, he shook his head, insisting that she should have stopped his sister from sacrificing her education. But his mother admitted that despite her efforts, there was little she could do to keep the girl in school. Just then, a phone buzzed on the floor. His mother picked it up, her face paling as she saw the caller. When he answered instead, the news on the other end enraged him. His sister had been abducted. The calm resolve on his face hardened, his expression shifting to one of fury. Meanwhile, in a darkened car, his sister sat bound and helpless as the thugs around her demanded her brother show up with 100 million or face the consequences. Over the phone, the thugs taunted him, challenging him to rush over if he dared. In anger, he gripped the phone tightly, suppressing the rage building within him. When his mother anxiously asked what was wrong, he reassured her that he'd be back soon, trying to hide his true intentions. However, she pleaded with him, begging him not to do anything that would land him in prison. The thought of him being behind bars terrified her, as she knew she couldn't bear the weight of losing him again. Just then, a familiar system screen appeared before him. Grateful yet annoyed at the timing, he noticed the system had granted him an adaptation reward. Though unimpressed with the delay, he quickly reviewed the rewards. A B-class poison skill, an A-class concealment skill, a D-class hell chlorination skill, and a unique shadow caster skill. Meanwhile, back at the gang's hideout, his sister was being dragged inside. A smaller thug voiced his fear, worried that the black-haired guy would come after them. The bigger thug scoffed, reminding his partner that they had a hostage to keep him in line. But as the elevator lights flickered ominously, tension filled the air. Suddenly, a shadowy figure materialized from the darkness, silently emerging behind the thugs. The sight of the eerie, dark silhouette sent a chill down the thug's spine. Stumbling back in terror, he screamed, "What the hell is that?" It was none other than our hero. Choosing his reward, he decided to test the Shadow Conjurer skill. He tore off a blood-stained sleeve from one of his defeated foes and tossed it to his new shadow servant, commanding it to track down the villain through the trace of blood. The shadow immediately obeyed, clearing a path for him, and before long he materialized directly inside the thug's elevator. The smaller thug, now panicking, made the mistake of lunging at him but was swiftly knocked out. Only the gang leader, the bully, was left, staring wide-eyed as he nervously asked, "Are you awakened?" Unfamiliar with the term, our hero simply raised an eyebrow and asked what it meant. The elevator doors slid open, and the bully desperately shouted a warning to his gang, telling them an awakened intruder had arrived. He managed to order them to attack all at once before he was abruptly knocked out. The gang members surged forward, surrounding Dae Sung, their black-haired nemesis cloaked in a hood, but he showed no fear. As the lights flickered, his shadow struck first, a chilling blow taking down an attacker. The real Dae Sung moved behind another thug, landing a powerful punch. One by one, the gang members fell, and soon the corridor was drenched in red. Dae Sung stood alone amidst the chaos, victorious and unscathed. After freeing his sister, Dae Sung asked if she was okay. Relieved, he ordered her to head home, promising to come see her soon. His sister, still shaken, watched in astonishment at the trail of chaos and bloodshed. Dae Sung made his way up the stairs, soon encountering another group of gangsters lounging with cigarettes in hand. He mocked them with a smirk. "Everyone here is so weak. It's almost disappointing." Annoyed by his taunt, the gangsters bristled, just like all those who had crossed his path before, one of them sneering, "Is this the guy?" Without missing a beat, Dae Sung scoffed, "You devils only know how to talk so annoying." The gangsters get absolutely wrecked, one after another, until one desperately dials their boss, a massive man covered in tattoos that stretch across his bulging muscles. As he picks up, he grumbles, berating his underling for disturbing him during his sauna time. But the panic in his subordinate's voice presses him to come quickly. The audacity of being summoned infuriates him, but the sound of another thug getting knocked out on the other end tells him something is seriously wrong. Rising from his seat, he clenches his enormous fist in frustration, crushing his phone. "What a waste," he growls. Back at the gang's headquarters, the floor is littered with bloodied bodies. Dae Sung's shadow wraith glides toward another trembling gang member who pleads for mercy. Just as a wall explodes open, Dae Sung turns only to have his face gripped by a colossal man who slams him into the ground. The boss roars about the destruction Dae Sung's caused, but Dae Sung, brushing off the hit, reflects on how neither his mother nor sister seem surprised by his powers, hinting that others with abilities like his might also exist. Emerging from the dust, Dae Sung's calm demeanor shocks the boss, who realizes this chaos has been caused by one guy. Dae Sung asks if he too is an awakener, but the boss just grins, boasting that he'll send Dae Sung back to hell. At the mention of hell, Dae Sung narrows his gaze as the muscular giant's clothes burst, muscles flexing with raw power. Unimpressed, Dae Sung lands a powerful punch to the boss's face, taunting him as he's thrown into the wall. The boss attempts to rise, furiously claiming he's not beaten yet, but Dae Sung's barrage of kicks quickly brings him to his knees, driving home what true hell really means. Desperate, the boss begs for his life, even offering up his money and assets. Intrigued, Dae Sung questions him about the gang's stash. Trembling, the boss points him toward a closet with a safe and flees to his car in the parking lot, swearing revenge through gritted teeth. But just as he thinks he's safe, Dae Sung appears beside him, casually reminding him he forgot to mention the safe's password. The boss, on the brink of a breakdown, hears Dae Sung's chilling words that he can reach him anytime, anywhere, leaving the terrified man shattered. Later, as if out of nowhere, a portal opens, spilling over 500 million won right in front of Dae Sung. Grinning like a greedy goblin, he instantly starts fantasizing about all the things and apartments he could buy. His first stop? A high-end mall where he becomes mesmerized by a sleek new folding phone. The shopkeeper mentions the price at nearly 2 million won, trying to tempt Dae Sung with an installment plan. But Dae Sung, unfazed, slaps a crisp 5 million won on the counter and buys not one but two models, shocking the shopkeeper, who accepts the cash with a hint of suspicion as if the price might have been adjusted. Back home, Dae Sung casually leaves his new shopping bag in the room, just as his mother calls him over for dinner. Before she can even ask where he's headed, he vanishes out the window. He's meeting his friend Chanho for dinner at a restaurant, and Chanho is stunned, hardly recognizing Dae Sung with his notably bulked-up physique since just a few days ago. The two start their meal with a drink, and Chanho steers the conversation toward the future, reminding Dae Sung that they're no longer carefree students. But Dae Sung shifts the topic, casually asking how many apartments he could buy with 500 million won. Chanho, initially stunned, explains that due to rising prices, that sum would barely cover a lease in the outskirts. Shocked, Dae Sung asks how much a city apartment would cost, and Chanho estimates at least 2 billion won. Sighing, he tells Dae Sung that the world has changed dramatically since his coma. Getting to the heart of the matter, Chanho asks if Dae Sung is awakened. Dae Sung admits he doesn't fully understand the term, prompting Chanho to explain everything from the beginning. Shortly after Dae Sung's coma, mysterious portals called gates began appearing. Initially, these portals were minor threats, but things escalated when monsters began pouring out in what became known as a gate fracture. The creatures wreaked havoc, immune to conventional weapons, leaving humanity defenseless. Curious, Dae Sung interrupts to ask if even heavy weapons couldn't harm them. Chanho confirms that ordinary weapons proved useless. Eventually, humanity discovered a new type of weapon made from monster byproducts, aura weapons. Those able to wield them became known as the awakened heroes who stood at the front lines in humanity's desperate fight for survival. As the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, and humanity had to adapt to face near extinction. Trying to impress Chanho, Dae Sung pulls out his new foldable phone with a smug grin, only to be deflated when Chanho mentions that such phones are now given away for free. Embarrassed, Dae Sung hides his shock, choosing not to reveal just how much he overpaid. Chanho refocuses the conversation on Awakeners, explaining that even without an aura weapon, Dae Sung can still harness the power of aura to enhance his body. He also remarks that he's heard rumors about Dae Sung's recent clash with a notorious gang, adding that his improved physique hasn't gone unnoticed. Seizing the opportunity, Dae Sung slyly asks if Chanho would still be as generous and respectful if he weren't an awakener, hinting at his plans to leverage their friendship. Chanho, annoyed by the suggestion, is about to retort when suddenly a gate fracture erupts above them. With monsters pouring out of the gate into the city, the atmosphere shifts to one of panic as Dae Sung and Chanho brace themselves for the chaos ahead. Monsters were visible beyond the gate as they stepped out one after other. Soon the area was filled by the disgusting creatures. As the monsters' wooden weapons slam into the ground, tremors ripple through the earth, amplifying the terror in the crowd. Their guttural growls send waves of fear through fleeing citizens, while Dae Sung, unfazed, sizes up the unfamiliar creatures, finding them unlike the beings he fought in hell. Wasting no time, he stamps his foot into the ground, cracking the pavement and launching a chunk of it toward the advancing monsters. However, his attack is deflected as a shimmering shield appears, blocking the debris mid-flight. Chanho hurriedly warns Dae Sung that conventional weapons are useless against these creatures, and when one monster lunges at them, Chanho closes his eyes, bracing for impact. Instead, the wet sound of splattering blood shocks him into opening his eyes, where he sees Dae Sung standing over the monster's headless body. Dae Sung's raw strength has proven effective, allowing him to take down the monsters. Barehanded. Chanho watches in awe as Dae Sung systematically decimates the group, marveling at his friend's power, wondering if Dae Sung is now a B-class awakener. Yet with the crowd's safety at stake, Chanho redirects his thoughts to leading people to safety. He raises his voice over the chaos, assuring the crowd that he knows a secure route through the sewer system. Just as hope flickers among the citizens, they're horrified to find themselves surrounded by more monsters, cutting off their escape. As panic erupts around them, a young girl's terrified cries fill the air. Just as a monster closes in on her, Chanho leaps to the rescue, pulling her to safety. Dae Sung steps in to finish the monster with a swift strike, teasing Chanho for getting in his way and urging him to find shelter since he's vulnerable in the open. Chanho takes charge, guiding civilians to the sewer for safety, while a young vlogger nearby begins live-streaming Dae Sung's solo battle against the monsters. Viewers tune in, captivated by the battle, and cheer Dae Sung on. Suddenly, the vlogger shouts a warning, but it's too late. Dae Sung is slammed against a car by a monster, the impact reverberating through the scene. The vlogger, more focused on his content than Dae Sung's safety, smirks, knowing that dramatic footage will bring in views. Meanwhile, Chanho manages to reunite the rescued girl with her mother, who tearfully apologizes for their separation. Dae Sung finds himself briefly cornered by a grinning monster, but to the shock of the vlogger and the creature alike, he dodges at the last moment. Addressing the monster with icy calm, Dae Sung thanks it for helping him recover some of his mana and offers it a painless end. With lethal precision, he strikes, dispatching the creatures one by one. In the live stream, comments flood in with complaints about the blurry video, demanding a closer look. A viewer named Slayer donates 5 million won, promising another 5 million for a clearer shot of Dae Sung's fight, raising the stakes for both the vlogger and the Demon Lord. Excitement surges through the vlogger, but his fear prevents him from moving closer. Meanwhile, Dae Sung continues his brutal takedown of the monsters, realizing that his relentless attacks are draining his mana rapidly. Donations start rolling in from viewers demanding clearer images and even requesting direct updates from the vlogger. One generous viewer offers 20 million won for detailed information on Dae Sung and offered 20 more on the task competition, sparking a bidding war among the live stream's audience. As the bids climb, it's clear that the viewers, many of whom are clan leaders with deep pockets, are interested not only in the spectacle but also in the potential power that Dae Sung represents, each wondering how his strength could serve their own agendas. Having defeated countless monsters, Dae Sung's fierce presence leaves the remaining creatures trembling in terror. One monster, seemingly their leader, steps forward without a hint of fear, silencing its minions with a lethal blow as it prepares to face Dae Sung. Meanwhile, the vlogger, consumed by greed, finally musters the courage to get closer for a better shot. Just as he inches forward, Chanho appears out of nowhere, startling him and demanding to know why he hasn't evacuated. In his surprise, the vlogger drops his phone, igniting a storm of comments from viewers mocking him as a loser and chicken for his cowardice. Chanho drags the vlogger toward a nearby building for safety, but the vlogger, still fixated on fame and fortune, resists. As they struggle, a monster approaches and stomps on the phone, crushing it. Shocked, the vlogger faints, but before the monster can attack further, Dae Sung intervenes, decapitating it in one swift move. With the last of the monsters dispatched, Dae Sung looks at Chanho, questioning why he'd risked his safety to return. Chanho admits he couldn't bear the thought of his friend fighting alone, even amidst the chaos. Dae Sung smiles, assuring Chanho he'll be fine, and requests him to wait around for about 20 minutes, mentioning he needs to visit a specific place. Chanho, trying to reassure him, says the other clans should be arriving soon to offer support. Dae Sung, unfamiliar with the concept, repeats, "Clan?" revealing his cluelessness. Chanho, caught off guard, promises to explain everything once he's back. Just then, a notification screen appears before Dae Sung. Implementation 100% complete. You can now use the Pantheon's items in the real world. Would you like to enter? Without a second thought, Dae Sung taps yes, and a portal opens up before him. Chanho's eyes widen in shock, watching his friend open the gate on his own. "Just what else is that brat capable of?" he mutters, astonished at Dae Sung's growing powers. As he steps into the Pantheon, Dae Sung, the Demon King, scoffs in frustration, irritated by the toll a minor battle has taken on his body. A panel materializes, showing his mana reserves at a pitiful 10%. Annoyed with how low his mana has dropped, he quickly begins searching for a way to restore it, hoping for something that could help him regain his true strength. Just then, he notices a prompt, suggesting he regain his power by reliving the experiences logged in his journal. Dae Sung stares at the message in confusion, questioning what journal it's referring to. Could this really be that diary, the one he kept every day in hell to stave off madness in that cursed place? Skeptical yet curious, he wonders how the memories of his darkest times might unlock his potential once more. With no other options, Dae Sung agrees to the task, and in an instant, a red-bound notebook materializes before him. As he watches, the system starts organizing the diary entries, and suddenly, a powerful demonic force bursts from the diary, breaking a long-sealed power. Days from his past blur and rush by his vision, vivid and intense. The diary begins to glow, and the system announces the completion of the manuscript's printing. Eager to reclaim his power, Dae Sung immediately flips to the 16th page, titled "In the Forest at the Predator." The system registers his choice, and without delay, the Pantheon environment shifts. The surrounding scenery changes rapidly. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Chanho escorts the vlogger kid, who awkwardly tries to pry for more details about the badass monster fighter who saved the day. Chanho, casting a scornful glance, wonders aloud why anyone would pay 20 million for a mere photo of his friend's face, unimpressed by the kid's flimsy curiosity. Their exchange is suddenly interrupted by a deafening noise that shakes the ground beneath them. Keeping his cool, Chanho instructs the vlogger to follow him in silence toward the nearby gathering of clans. Mid-stride, Chanho's phone vibrates, revealing a message from his leader. Reinforcements due to the weekend are delayed, urging Chanho to escape immediately. Distressed by the news, Chanho clenches his fist, looking up at the chaos around him, hoping desperately for his demon-hunting best friend to return before it's too late. In another dimension, our hero finds himself transported back to the ominous forest of predators. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves, but an eerie silence blankets the surroundings, putting him on edge. Suddenly, a panel materializes before him, announcing his mission. Subjugate 10 white colossi, the divine beings of the forest. Confused yet undeterred, he scans his surroundings, oblivious to the looming threat overhead. Without warning, a massive shadow darkens the ground around him. Above, a towering mechanical creature locks its sights on him, its eyes glowing with a menacing crimson light before it unleashes a blinding energy beam. Sensing the impending danger, Dae Sung narrowly sidesteps the blast, dodging a searing fate. As the fog clears, he catches his first glimpse of the White Colossus, a towering metal monstrosity with a visage only a mother could appreciate, if it even had one. An enormous hand rockets toward him, cutting through the AI like a drill. But the demon lord stands his ground. With one swift motion, he counters with a powerful strike, his fist colliding with the automaton's metallic face, making the hulking machine stagger. In a final attempt, the Colossus extends its fingers like sharp serrated blades, encircling him, but Dae Sung slips through the assault with ease. He counters with a crushing punch straight to its core, the sheer force tearing the machine apart from top to bottom. As the debris settles, his gaze lands on a peculiar, glowing red core lying amidst the remains, its mysterious energy drawing him in. Back on Earth, Chanho and the vlogger kid reach the rooftop, only to be greeted by a grisly scene. Bodies lie strewn across the ground, remnants of a brutal confrontation, their blood staining the concrete in dark, sprawling pools. The vlogger kid, visibly shaken. With the rooftop littered in bloodshed, Chanho and the vlogger kid step into the aftermath of a savage encounter. Chanho's attention falls on a man barely clinging to life. They hurry to his side, his weak words struggling to escape his lips, a last attempt to warn them. Chanho turns to see the threat the man tried to describe. A towering goblin wielding a monstrous club only feet away. Seeing the beast, the vlogger kid stumbles back, horror-stricken. Chanho suggests moving the injured man, but quickly recognizes the slim chances, cautioning the kid against any rash moves, signaling they may already be too late. Yet the sheer terror freezes the boy. Fed up, Chanho snaps, telling him to pull himself together if he wants to survive. But before they can make another move, the goblin lets out a roar, leaping into the air, its club raised and ready to crush them both. Back in the Pantheon, the Hell Monarch scrutinizes the ominous glowing red core. It's clear these so-called divine machines have an infuriating ability to repair themselves, evolving with each new threat. Panels around him flash, explaining the core's self-rebuilding feature, which becomes stronger and more resilient as it adapts. Spotting an opening, our hero lunges at the core, fist flying, but his blow barely leaves a mark. The core absorbs the impact with unsettling ease, bouncing back almost like rubber. Frustrated, he unleashes a surge of power, red sparks crackling around his fist as he pummels the core. Yet, even with his brutal onslaught, the core's restoration continues unfazed, now reaching 65%. Suddenly, warning sirens blare. Just as he readies a final crushing blow, a searing laser beam slices through the air, narrowly missing him. Spinning around, he realizes too late. A ring of robots surrounds him, each one armed and ready for a fight. The Colossi launch a perfectly timed assault, firing laser beams from every direction. Dodging with nimble, ninja-like movements, the Hell Monarch quickly realizes just how desperate his situation is. Worse yet, the core, seemingly untouched by the chaos, ticks up to 98% completion. But giving up is not an option. Amid the relentless onslaught, he pushes forward, charging through the lasers and just in time lands a devastating blow, shattering the core at the final second. Frustrated by the constant barrage, he sifts through his memories, searching for any insight to turn the tables. But before he can focus, a splitting headache strikes, freezing him in place. Strangely, the robots ignore his vulnerable state, providing a lucky window as memories of hard-fought battles return to him. With renewed confidence and a concrete plan, he prepares to turn the tide and make these machines regret their attack. Back on Earth, Chanho and the vlogger kid make a frantic dash with the monstrous creature looming dangerously close. Thinking fast, they split up, disorienting the oversized brute and leaving it unsure whom to pursue. They loop back, re-entering the building where the massive beast, far too large to follow, claws at the entrance, his massive arm reaching in a futile attempt to grab them. The two manage to slip inside just in time, catching their breath as the creature lets out a frustrated growl. Once the monster finally gives up, Chanho signals to the kid it's their chance to bolt while they can. In the other dimension, our hero nimbly darts between the divine machines, evading a relentless barrage of laser beams. His strategy? Create as much chaos as possible, luring every nearby automaton toward him. Once he's gathered a sizable swarm, he sprints deep into an empty part of the forest. Pausing just long enough for the machines to lock on and charge their attacks, he stands by nonchalantly, even taunting them with a quick flip of the bird. Suddenly, one of the colossal robots buckles, falling to its knees as if out of nowhere. The others, ignoring their fallen comrade, press forward. only to meet a far more horrifying fate. With a thunderous rumble, the ground splits open, revealing a massive jaw belonging to the legendary swamp whale. One by one, the machines are consumed, each swallowed whole by the monstrous beast that gives the forest its ominous name. Watching this scene unfold, memories of past battles flood back to our demon lord, who observes from afar as the whale does the work for him. With all 10 divine beings defeated, a congratulatory panel flashes, awarding him with enhanced physical abilities, boosted mana reserves, and the Dagger of Judgment. Examining his new weapon, he finds it functions like a remote-controlled projectile within a 100-meter radius, almost like an unconventional birthday gift. After giving his cool new weapon a quick test, the ruler of Hell decides it's time to head back to Earth. The scene shifts to a somber news broadcast from the day the first fracture appeared, capturing the tragic events that took countless lives. The anchor, struggling to keep composure, consults a professor with a stern expression, looking exactly like the kind of uncle who brings up politics at family gatherings. The professor, without hesitation, blames the Awakeners Association, claiming their habit of ignoring growing crises and taking too many vacations has left the world vulnerable. Fractures don't care if hunters are lounging in Hawaii, he insists. They need to be held accountable. Meanwhile, a young guy with a man bun watches the broadcast on his phone, visibly irritated by the professor's harsh words. He complains that hunters in the association are paid peanuts compared to those in the elite clans. The team leader next to him urges him to shut up and focus, reminding him that poor performance could cost them their jobs. But before they can settle into their duties, breaking news pops up on the screen. A lone awakener has managed to handle the entire monster disaster single-handedly. At the same time, Vlogger Boy and Chanho are hiding out in a room, anxiously awaiting rescue. Suddenly, the room shudders. A series of deafening sounds echo outside, and the roof begins to collapse, filling them with dread. Chanho, fearing the worst, braces himself, certain their end is near, until the dust settles, revealing none other than a worn and hungry Dae Sung, standing triumphantly on the beheaded remains of the oversized goblin. Seeing his friends alive, he smugly made a face like old Granny and commented, "I hope I'm not too late." Relief floods Chanho's face, and he quickly checks in on his friend, noticing something off. But exhausted and in pain, Dae Sung only manages a weary smile before ordering the Vlogger Kid to whip up some food. Vlogger Boy and Chanho exchange speechless glances, unable to comprehend Dae Sung's craving for a grilled burger in a life-or-death situation. With no chicken available, the Demon Lord sizes up the goblin's remains, deciding if monster meat might do the trick. He digs in, chowing down with gusto, while the others turn away, nearly sick at the sight. Just then, a soldier appears, lifting Vlogger Boy's spirits as he realizes he might actually make it out alive. As our hero calmly continues devouring his monstrous meal, the soldier looks on, visibly awed at his boldness, though perhaps still unaware he's munching on goblin guts. Before the soldier can react further, Chanho steps in, smoothly introducing his friend and pulling him away, promising he'll get to eat his fill later. But the soldier suddenly turns serious, explaining they can't just walk out. Chanho confidently flashes his clan ID, a clear mark of status, which makes the soldier's face light up with respect and willingness to escort them to safety. Elsewhere, Man Bun Guy is not handling things so well. Still queasy from the sight of torn-apart monster remains, he's doubled over, trying not to lose his lunch. His team leader, exasperated, yells for him to stop cringing like a gutsless worm and get back to searching for survivors. Wincing, Man Bun Guy manages to convince a soldier to help him enter the restricted area, waving his association credentials. Meanwhile, his team leader surveys the aftermath, a look of puzzlement crossing his face. He wonders what kind of monster it takes to shred these creatures so thoroughly, leaving only scraps behind. The scene shifts to Chanho's car, where he and his friend banter about what's next. Chanho suggests crashing at his place, but our hero insists on checking in with his family, although his disheveled appearance might give them a scare. Agreeing, he settles for a call with his mother, and the two make a pit stop to grab some fried chicken before heading over to Chanho's impressive apartment. Once they're cleaned up and surrounded by an assortment of luxurious dishes, our protagonist is curious about the wealth Chanho's earned as a hunter. Chanho explains that hunters do well financially, but also remarks on the exploitative system. When asked if he'd consider becoming a hunter himself, our guy gives a non-committal grunt, savoring his chicken wing. Chanho, amused, mentions that his friend could potentially achieve a high rank with his strength, explaining the ranks as stepping stones to prestigious clans with lucrative rewards. Intrigued, Dae Sung asks if there's a rank above A. Chanho reveals the elite S rank, only 5 in the world, joking that A rank would suit him just fine. Toasting to the idea, the two laugh, enjoying the moment. The scene then shifts to an upscale restaurant where mobsters from the Hongma clan are dining. Lee Seok-woo, a long-haired, eerie figure, is calmly questioning a trembling bald gangster about rumors that a single hooded figure has wiped out an entire organization. Baldy's sweating as he sits near a body likely killed by Lee Seok-woo himself. With a sinister smile, Lee Seok-woo makes it clear he's only after the stolen cash. The gangster tries to play dumb. After appearing to drop the matter, Lee Seok-woo abruptly eliminates him, the man's head exploding in a sudden gruesome display. Unfazed, Lee Seok-woo picks up his tablet, showing a photo of Dae Sung. In a calm, calculating tone, he instructs a woman lurking in the shadows to track down this culprit without delay, sealing Dae Sung's position as their next target. Meanwhile, our boy finally arrives at the Hunter Association, where Chanho suggests he take the awakening test. When our hero casually brushes him off, Chanho reminds him to be polite unless he wants to look like an outsider. Nervous like a dad awaiting his kid's test results, Chanho asks our hero to text him the outcome when it's over. As he approaches the gate, our boy notices the odd crowd gathered for the test. Undeterred, he heads into lab number 3, where he checks his phone and sees a message from his mom, asking when he'll be home. Smiling, he reassures her that he'll take a shower and be back soon. Just as he's enjoying this wholesome moment, a clerk calls him in. Suddenly, a loud, delusional older man starts protesting that he's awakened, claiming that his overnight hair loss is proof. Despite the employee's reassurances that the meter isn't broken, the old man stubbornly continues, eventually making everyone laugh. Annoyed, our boy finally grabs the man's bald head, silencing him with a powerful aura. Even then, the man insists the meter is broken. To humor him, a hunter tests the device, showing a clear C-rank result. Embarrassed but unwilling to admit defeat, the old man is ushered out by the clerk. Finally, our hero's turn arrives. The clerk gossips with a colleague, speculating that he might be the highest-ranking applicant of the day due to his overwhelming aura. Brushing off her enthusiasm, he gives her a light bonk on the head, then steps up to the manometer with her full support. Suddenly, chaos erupts in the Korean Hunter Association. The branch manager receives an urgent call directing him to visit Examination Room 3 on the 6th floor immediately. Curious yet skeptical about the urgency, he briefly entertains the idea of a 6th S-rank hunter awakening, then dismisses it as unlikely. Upon reaching the 6th floor, he finds a large crowd gathered around the examination room. Inside, he sees the crystal meter orb shattered like an eggshell. Anxious, he demands an explanation. The staff quickly explains that when Dae Sung placed his hand on the orb, its colors flickered wildly before it exploded in a cloud of smoke. The manager's frustration grows as he suspects a defective meter, but the staff reveals that they used 3 different crystal meters, each shattering the same way. The manager finally concedes that it's highly improbable for all 3 devices to be faulty. Meanwhile, Dae Sung nervously wonders if he'll have to pay for the destroyed meters. When he asks the manager about his results, the manager admits they can't continue testing without risking more explosions. He explains that this is the first time they've seen such an incident, so Dae Sung's license test will serve as the sole basis for determining his rank. Still uncertain, Dae Sung questions the reliability of the license test, but a staff member reassures him, explaining the system's accuracy. Accepting the proposal with a nod, the Demon Lord exits quietly, while the branch manager is left pondering the unprecedented event. The clerk then suggests a theory, speculating that the crystal balls might have a measurement limit beyond which they fail. Growing curious, the manager asks if she's implying Dae Sung could be a triple S rank. She nods, but her colleague laughs, pointing out that, while anything is possible, the notion of Dae Sung being a triple S rank is hard to believe even in their unpredictable world. Thanks for clarifying. Let me try again with closer attention to the specific flow and tone. As Dae Sung exits the Hunter Association building, his phone rings. It's Chanho, checking in about the test results. Dae Sung, half amused, informs him he's been given borderline status due to some unexpected meter malfunctions. Chanho, familiar with Dae Sung's chaotic nature, jokingly asks if he was up to something. Dae Sung chuckles, insisting he just followed the instructions, but Chanho had a feeling something strange was bound to happen. After hanging up, Dae Sung's senses sharpen, and he spots a sniper lying in wait, weapon aimed squarely at him. The sniper, a skilled assassin, mumbles in disbelief. Dae Sung doesn't look particularly strong, and she's sure one shot will finish him. But just as she's about to fire, she realizes, to her shock, that he's noticed her. Dae Sung points to his forehead, signaling her to go ahead, anger visible on his face. Thrown off, the sniper's confidence wavers, but she fires the aura bullet anyway, relieved when it lands with a loud explosion. Yet as the smoke clears, Dae Sung stands unharmed, and she recoils in horror. She tries to retreat, but Dae Sung's dagger strikes her leg, stopping her cold. When she looks up, Dae Sung is already standing over her, like a figure from a nightmare. Feigning nonchalance, Dae Sung taunts her, claiming that a simple bullet to the head can't kill him. Desperate, the sniper draws her gun again and demands to know where he came from. In a low voice, Dae Sung responds that he's from hell itself. She opens fire, unleashing multiple aura bullets in quick succession, but Dae Sung sidesteps every shot and reappears right behind her. Grabbing her by the neck, he slams her into a wall, his power pulsing ominously around her. Terrified, she faints, but he brings her back to consciousness, pressing her to reveal who sent her. She's caught between two killers, the Hongma clan leader and the demon before her. Clinging to survival, she lies, blaming a low-level thug, Kim Seong-hun, saying he ordered the hit in revenge for Dae Sung's earlier attack. Dae Sung, unimpressed by her easy answer, throws one of her aura bullets back at her, grazing her shoulder. Realizing she's said too much, the sniper shuts down, determined to face death rather than reveal anything further. But before she can react, Dae Sung lands a fatal blow straight through her chest. Her body drops lifelessly to the ground, leaving Dae Sung frustrated by the dead end. Without hesitating, he begins disposing of the evidence. He briefly considers using a special item he has, but decides against it. Instead, he opens a portal to the Pantheon, a restricted realm due to nearby fractures. Wrapping her body in a blue cloth, he steps through, greeted by the Hell system, and requests access to the 134th page of his journal to log this encounter. As Dae Sung searches through his memories, he recalls that the Soul Prison was the primary weapon of one of the 15 rulers of Hell, known as the Ghost King. He remembers their fight and realizes that the weapon he acquired can summon the dead when infused with his own blood. At first, he thought this artifact would be incredibly useful. However, he was disappointed when the commander he summoned turned out to be far too weak to be of any real help. As the 198th day of the 67th year unfolds, Dae Sung considers that this item might be useful for disposing of the bodies. He finds himself in front of the River of the Dead, recalling that the Ghost King's territory lies on the other side. The last time he saw the river, there was a boat to cross, but now there's nothing at all. He realizes that swimming across is impossible. Just a single dip in the water would disintegrate a person's body. While he contemplates how to reach the other side, the first part of his quest begins. Many small heavenly beings resembling insects swarm toward him. These bugs, known as righteous white pillars, start firing toxic sludge balls in his direction. Dae Sung skillfully dodges their attacks, wondering if defeating these creatures might earn him a boat as a reward. He draws his weapon and slices through one of the bugs. As the creature is killed, it explodes, releasing numerous poison bombs that look like poison bullets. Instead of dodging, Dae Sung raises a barrier, blocking all the incoming attacks. But as the swarm continues, he grows frustrated with how tedious it is to handle them one by one. Spotting another bug flying toward him, he decides to switch tactics. In a swift burst of speed, he lunges forward, slicing through the rest of the swarm effortlessly, his strikes precise and powerful. Within moments, he clears the area of every last bug. After finishing the quest, Dae Sung receives a 50% completion rate and an armor reward called the Vermin's Blessing. This armor grants him immunity to the energy of the dead, hinting he can cross the deadly river with it on. Wasting no time, he dons the armor and dives in, swimming across. Midway, he's notified that his impressive swimming skills have caught the admiration of demon beasts from the Pantheon, who also apologize for not being more helpful. A message that only irritates him. Reaching the Ghost King's territory, he's surprised to find the undead castle has vanished. Another notification from the demon beasts apologizing for the missing castle frustrates him further. Wondering if side quests might lead him back to the castle, he then notices a towering structure, the heavenly obelisk, with a gate at its base. Just as he questions what comes next, a new system message prompts him to eliminate 1,000 heavenly creatures within 2 hours to complete the second quest. Almost immediately, a creature appears, which he recognizes as a commanding general. Mistaking them for demons, Dae Sung orders them to kneel before their lord, prepared for the next showdown. Just as Dae Sung confronts the creatures, another notification appears, apologizing on behalf of the demon beasts for the betrayal of their allies. The creatures charge at him, but as he kills several, he notices they lack cores. Suspecting the strange pillar might be the cause, he activates blood neutralization, transforming into a powerful half-human, half-demon hybrid. This form amplifies his stats and attack power by 300%. With newfound strength, he slashes through the commanding generals in large numbers. Approaching the mysterious pillar, he decides it would be more effective to dismantle it from the inside. Dae Sung charges through the gate, tearing down every enemy in his path before utterly destroying the entire structure. As the tower collapses, the coreless demons disintegrate, vanishing. With this, his second quest is complete, and the implementation rate of the soul prison reaches 100%. After completing his quest, Dae Sung is rewarded with 2 orbs, one purple and one orange. Curious, he grabs the purple orb, which turns out to be the weapon he was searching for. This item grants him 3 powerful skills: the ability to imprison a dead target, resurrect it, and peek into its memories. However, he's disappointed to find that he can only store 20 souls at a time. He then collects the orange orb, which reveals itself as a rune of expansion. After engraving it into his soul prison, the storage capacity jumps from 20 to 100, enough to suit his needs. Satisfied, Dae Sung decides to leave the Pantheon, ignoring further warnings from the demon beasts. Upon returning, he finds that the sniper's corpse has mysteriously vanished. Unnerved yet tired, he heads home. At dinner, his sister mentions his lateness as their mother quietly worries about the world's changes. Dae Sung reassures her, expressing gratitude that she's survived this long. Afterward, he calls his friend Chanho, informing him of his plans to go underground and asking him to look out for his family. Meanwhile, at the Hongma clan building, the higher-ups gather to discuss the emerging threat posed by the new hunter, Dae Sung. Lee Seok-woo, a sinister and calculating figure, proposes a plan to sabotage the upcoming ranking test to obstruct Dae Sung's progress. Turning to Jin Chul, an A-rank assassin immersed in a tank, Seok-woo asks if he's ready for an experiment. Jin Chul, barely able to contain his excitement, responds, "I'm dying for it, Doctor." "Please start it already." The scientists then begin injecting Jin Chul with a powerful serum. As the serum flows, Jin Chul writhes in agony, enduring unbearable pain. At 55% implementation, one of the scientists notes with alarm that Jin Chul's acceptance limit has been breached and looks at Lee Seok-woo with a questioning expression. In response, Seok-woo, exuding cold arrogance, orders him to continue. Standing unfazed, he remarks, "If he can't even survive this, I wouldn't bother taking him." With 90% of the serum injected, Jin Chul's agony intensifies as he howls, his eyes bulging and veins pulsing under the strain. Suddenly, his heart rate flatlines, and his body goes limp. A scientist, panicked, declares Jin Chul dead, but Lee Seok-woo silences him with a dismissive wave, his gaze locked onto the tank. Moments later, Jin Chul's hands twitch, startling the scientists as his heart begins to beat once more. His eyes snap open, glowing a luminous green as raw energy floods through him. With a surge of strength, he shatters the tank with a single powerful punch, stepping out as the eerie glow in his eyes intensifies. Seok-woo, watching with a creepy smile, compliments his new test subject and expresses excitement to see Jin Chul's performance in the days to come. On the rooftop, Dae Sung is chatting with Chanho, who casually mentions that he might need to use the association's equipment. This sparks an idea in Dae Sung's mind. He grabs a wooden stick and decides to conduct a little experiment. Activating his judgment dagger, he commands the system to recognize the stick as his dagger. To his surprise, the system accepts the command, and the stick transforms, taking on the power of the judgment dagger. Now, with a smirk, Dae Sung realizes he's found a loophole, one that lets him wield his powerful weapon in a disguise. Holding his wand, he feels a bit like a wizard, ready to cast chaos on his enemies. With this newfound trick, he enters the Pantheon again and steps into the Flame King's territory. The landscape is harsh, aflame with scorching heat, and he's immediately surrounded by Oracle servants, snow-white wolves clad in heavy armor with blazing red eyes. The system pings, presenting him with a new quest. Defeat 1,000 of these Oracle wolves to earn half of the Hellfire Greatsword. Dae Sung sighs but accepts, slicing his hand to summon his soul prison power. He's not thrilled about using it on such low-level enemies, but the task needs doing. One of the wolves charges at him, but he remains unfazed. In a flash, he moves with lightning speed, cutting through the armored wolves as if they were nothing. After taking down 33 of the wolves, he summons their souls from his soul prison, transforming them into shadow versions of the wolves. These shadows, now under his control, charge at the rest of the pack. The Oracle army is thrown into confusion as they're confronted with their own kind, now twisted into dark replicas. A fierce battle ensues as Dae Sung's shadow army clashes with the living Oracle wolves. Watching the chaos, Dae Sung casually pulls out a cigarette, attempting to relax while his minions do the heavy lifting. But after a single puff, he coughs, grimacing at the taste and wondering how Chanho enjoys such a crappy thing. Suddenly, one of the wolves breaks through his minion army and lunges toward him. Dae Sung smirks, watching as two shadowy arms extend from his prison power to catch the creature, pinning it down. The thrill of having undying minions fight for him is satisfying, but he soon grows impatient with the slow pace of the battle. He realizes he could be here for hours if he continues like this. Deciding to end things quickly, a devilish smile spreads across his face. Flames begin to swirl around him as he kicks off the ground, rocketing into the sky. He hovers for a moment, then descends back to the plains like a golden meteor. His speed is blinding, and as he crashes down, a massive shockwave ripples out, triggering an explosion that instantly obliterates every Orchel wolf in sight. The scene shifts to Soul Clan HQ, where Shin-Cho Young, a strikingly beautiful samurai, is in the throes of a grueling training session. Her movements are sharp and precise as she elegantly slices through the purple, monster-like holographic dummy. However, the intensity of the simulation takes its toll. Finally, she falls to her knees, her sword still firmly gripped in her hands, panting with exhaustion. Beads of sweat rain down her face, shoulders, and arms, tracing rivulets over her skin, a testament to the fierce effort she's put into her training. Behind a glass window, the clan's leader, Hwang Jun-young, and the department head watch her performance intently. Soul Clan's leader, Hwang Jun-young, notes that she's developed some risky habits, while the department head mentions they have 10 days to address those flaws. Hwang Jun-young orders an increase in her training difficulty, knowing they need her to be prepared for Hongma Clan's Mad Dog. Adjusting his glasses, the department head asks if Jun-young is referring to Jinchul. The leader confirms, adding that Cho-young would be unstoppable if not for Hongma Clan's top fighter. Frustrated, he curses Hongma Clan's underhanded tactics. The department head tries to calm him by recalling a previous ban, but Jun-young is certain that Hongma will once again resort to dirty tricks in the upcoming competition. The department head concedes, noting that the stage is indeed set for a showdown between Cho-young and Jinchul. However, Jun-young shrewdly suggests that this assumption only holds if there isn't another formidable underdog yet to emerge. Meanwhile, our hero, seated atop a mound of his defeated enemies, receives an endless stream of notifications from demons expressing their gratitude for his merciless work. Annoyed by the interruptions, he sighs, wishing for a mute button as he smokes, clearly unbothered by the carnage around him. Hearing a low growl from one of the nearly dead wolves, he glares down, telling it to be quiet while he's enjoying his smoke, and with one swift stab, ends its suffering. This final kill marks his 1,000th, and with it, he's rewarded with half of the Hellfire Greatsword. The souls of his fallen foes begin swirling before him, coalescing into a glowing orb, a soul stone, a special item that needs to be offered at an altar. The demon lord scoffs at the thought of having to search for an altar like a commoner. However, as if answering his frustration, a massive stone structure bursts from the ground before him, saving him the effort. Without hesitation, he strides over to the altar, placing the soul stone into a sacrificial bowl. Now, to complete the quest for the Hellfire Greatsword, he must be recognized by the guardian serpent. He smirks, eager for whatever challenge awaits. Suddenly, a gargantuan serpent materializes before him, its scales gleaming ominously as it coils and towers over him. Our hero narrows his eyes, bracing himself as the battle seems ready to begin. They lock eyes in a fierce, silent standoff, a moment charged with intensity. But before he can make a move, a panel appears before him, displaying the unexpected victory condition, to answer the serpent's questions. The demon lord stares, utterly baffled. A quiz? Of all things? He mutters in annoyance, barely restraining his frustration at the absurd task. Scoffing, he finally gestures as if to say, "Fine. Ask your question already." The guardian serpent begins to speak, its voice a low, echoing rumble. But as it utters its first question, its words are so garbled and chaotic, they sound like a scrambled rap track played at double speed. Our hero cringes, straining to understand a single word. Our demon king sighs in frustration, his patience worn thin by the absurdity of the trial. Furious, he shoots his dagger straight into the serpent's eye, causing the beast to howl in pain. Not satisfied with just that, he waves his hand, forcing the dagger to pierce through the creature's skull and exit out the other eye. Summoning the dagger back to him, he seethes with rage, charging at the serpent. "You think I've gotten soft?" he mutters under his breath as he pounds the guardian beast's head repeatedly. The serpent's head swells up from the relentless blows before exploding in a grotesque burst of blood. Our hero stands there, drenched in the serpent's blood, exuding an aura of absolute power. Yet as he looks at the aftermath, something doesn't feel right. The battle was far too easy. Turning around, he recognizes the ancient pattern of regenerating enemies, a trick he's faced before. With a confident grin, he prepares for the next phase. He invites the serpent to attack him, and the snake, hearing his challenge,'s mouth, sensing the blue flame of regeneration flickering inside the serpent. He smirks, knowing exactly what to do. Without hesitation, he steps into the serpent's mouth. The beast turns its head in confusion, and as its pupils burst in shock, it vomits him out. Our hero lands gracefully, now holding the Hellfire greatsword in his hand, a fiery blue weapon glowing with power. The system congratulates him for collecting the sword, but warns that its full abilities are sealed until the quest is complete. Undeterred, our Demon King declares that even this incomplete weapon is enough to defeat the oversized serpent. He raises the sword and slashes downward, its blazing energy traveling along the serpent's body from head to tail. The beast is sliced cleanly in two, and the quest reaches its conclusion. A panel materializes, announcing the trial of scorching fire. He must endure 10 days of burning agony to fully unlock the Hellfire greatsword's power. As the flames engulf him, he remains composed, commanding the sword to cease its burning. The timer continues to tick down, but with an attitude more fiery than the sword itself, he demands the Flame King to come to his senses. The timer hits 0, and the sword responds, begging for forgiveness. Our hero's anger calms, and with a grin, he greets his old partner, the Hellfire greatsword, now fully unlocked. With the demons cast away to the ultimate destination of souls in hell, chaos erupts in his wake. But our hero, now with his weapon in hand, feels a sense of relief. No need to visit that decrepit place. The trial is completed. The demon sword, with a voice filled with ancient wisdom, proclaims that it has been waiting for the return of its master, the Demon King. This makes him pause, wondering if his old partner harbors any resentment for his long absence. The Flame King, however, humbly reassures him, explaining that it does not despise him for leaving. Instead, the aftermath of his departure is what troubles it. Curious, the Demon King asks it to elaborate, and the sword reveals a troubling truth. Hell was invaded by heavenly beings during his absence. Taking advantage of the Demon King's powerlessness, the invaders sealed all of hell and banished the demon folk into the pandemonium. The sword then pleads with its master, explaining how it was reluctantly swallowed by the serpent to avoid the same fate as its brethren. It patiently awaited the arrival of its true ruler. The Flame King listens, understanding the sword's devotion. He promises that he will share the full purpose of his return when the time is right. Changing the subject, he asks the sword if it recognizes the orb of energy that had been dropped by the guardian serpent. The demon sword pauses, sensing the same mysterious energy that it had once felt from the heavenly beings who invaded hell. A feeling of unease settles over the Demon King as he recalls the heavenly invasion. Still, with his usual calm demeanor, he raises his hand confidently, absorbing the orb of energy. He trusts that the system won't deceive him with fake rewards. After successfully collecting it, a panel appears, informing him that one more orb is required to access a currently hidden area. When asked if he plans to return to Earth, The Demon King simply replies that there are still more rewards to claim in this vast, chaotic world. His quest is far from over. Meanwhile, back on Earth, an employee at the Soul Clan is discussing the viral massacre video with Chanho. The video, which shows the brutal actions of the Demon King, has been circulating widely, and the employee presses Chanho for details. Chanho, feeling the pressure, awkwardly tries to conceal his friend's identity, knowing that revealing too much could cause trouble. To his surprise, the director of the Soul Clan appears unexpectedly and invites Chanho for a private conversation. Confused and somewhat nervous, Chanho humbly asks why he has been singled out for this meeting. The handsome director, with a calm demeanor, simply responds that he wanted to enjoy a smoke together. Now, on the rooftop, they share a cigarette. The director, looking thoughtful, questions whether Chanho was truly at the center of the massacre. Chanho quickly realizes that the director is assessing whether he can recruit the infamous awakened individual. Not wanting to expose his friend, Chanho claims that there's nothing significant to report. The director, still contemplative, expresses his determination to recruit the Demon Lord no matter the cost. Chanho awkwardly smiles, pretending to be unaware of the situation, and steers the conversation toward the guild's ace, Shin Cho-young. At this, the director suddenly falls silent. When Chanho gently prompts him again, the director reveals that Shin Cho-young has been pushing herself worryingly hard. 7 days before Dung's licensing test, Shin Cho-young is seen training in her most challenging simulation yet at the Soul Clan HQ. The B-rank samurai lady slices through her practice dummies with ease, but she soon finds herself surrounded by more than she can handle. Overwhelmed, she's bitten on the shoulder by one of the dummies before the simulation is terminated. Startled, Shin Cho-young begs for a second chance, but as the enemies vanish, she turns to face the clan leader, who calls her over to discuss her performance. Frustrated, Shin Cho-young exclaims that she would have done better if given more time. With a calm demeanor, the clan leader Hwang Jun-young points out that she's putting too much pressure on herself. Shin Cho-young, in response, complains that he's always encouraged her to push for what she wants, even if it means enduring hardship. Maintaining his cool, Jun-young clarifies that this advice applies strictly to physical training. Shin Cho-young, with a hint of sarcasm, remarks that she understands her body's limits better than he does and insists that she hasn't overdone it. Jun-young, now sarcastic, asks if she really believes she knows herself better than an AI. He tells her to compare her current mental state to that of a normal one. Seeing her haywire mental state on the AI's graph, Shin Cho-young regretfully admits her mistake. Jun-young, gritting his teeth, asks if she still hasn't noticed her abnormal mental state, which had been flagged by the AI. With a somber look, Shin Cho-young mumbles that it's all to get into the top 5. Hearing this, the clan leader questions her true motivation for wanting to rank up. He wonders if her goal is to gain access to the A-rank gates, where she could earn more glory and wealth. Shin Cho-young, gripping her bottle until it shatters, bites her lip and firmly states that her desire isn't for money or fame, but to wipe out all the monsters in the world. 2 days later, at the Hongma clan building, Lee Seokwoo makes his way into a heavily secured area. Using his fingerprints, he unlocks a top-security door, which creaks open to reveal a mysterious room. Repulsed by the stench, Lee Seokwoo is surprised to find that his subject has been doing well. He mumbles about changing the ventilation and lighting as his eyes turn to a man hunched over, devouring a corpse. Ginho, chewing on raw flesh, glares like an animal at Lee Seokwoo, who remains completely unconcerned. Lee Seokwoo casually comments that the A-ranker should continue feasting and rest well so the monster serum can keep working. Gazing at the blood-covered demonic hunter, the long-haired psycho reveals his excitement for his pet to become the star of the upcoming licensing test. Just like that, 2 more days pass. Our protagonist is busy grinding quests to boost his power in the Pantheon. When the Flame King asks when they will leave Hell, the absolute ruler announces that their time has come. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated.